listening to the Project Ignite podcast,
where real digital entrepreneurs reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies to help you ignite and grow your online business.
ProjectIgnite.com. Your digital business starts here.
Now, here's your host, Derek Gale.
Welcome to the Project Ignite podcast, a podcast designed to skip all the hype BS and just bring you real entrepreneurs, real actionable tips, strategies to help you grow your business on the internet. This is your host, Derek Gale, and today we're going to be talking about a hot topic. It's always a hot topic, has been for quite a few years, and that is Facebook. And I've got one of my favorite guests on the show to talk about Facebook. This is actually his third appearance on the show. And when I resurrected this podcast after a few-year hiatus, I was like, who do I need to have back right away? And he was at the top of the list because if I ask my listeners, to rate episodes, who's your favorite guest, he's always at the top. So he is the founder of H2H Media and the Marketers Council, creator of the Limitless Leads Workshop and Advisory Program. And he's known just as a leading Facebook advertising strategist. And this guy produces ROI. Highest ROI in the industry, has a list of A-list clients from thought leaders, best-selling authors, top Inc. 500 company, fast growth, and just an awesome guy. I'd like to welcome Nicholas Kusmich to the show. Welcome.
Hey, Derek. It is, I can't believe all this time has passed since the last time we had this conversation or a version of it. So I'm super stoked to be here, man.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you was at Traffic and Conversion Summit, where you were speaking. Was it 3? No, was it 3?
Two or three. Something
it was
like that.
Yeah.
It feels like a while.
It was, yeah, for sure. So let's just start off with the high level here. Okay, so 2020 was a 2020. What a gong show that was. Right. So between COVID, politics, antitrust lawsuits, Mark and Facebook have been juggling a lot of balls here. And so kind of based on this last year of chaos, I've got two questions for you. Has this changed your business at all? And how would you summarize the state of advertising on Facebook today?
Oh, that's such a good question. Let's answer the first and then see if we can delve a little bit into the second. Has it changed our business? Absolutely not. And keep in mind, I like to put this in context. Oftentimes we're known as the Facebook guys and we do the Facebook thing. But truth be told, I'm platform agnostic. I believe in the greater principles of marketing and digital advertising and how to utilize those. And I'm happy to apply those to any kind of platform. It's just many years ago, we got lucky. We selected Facebook as the platform of choice. Of course, Facebook went on to buy Instagram and WhatsApp and continues to buy properties, which we're thankful for. And so even to this day, I'll still fight tooth and nail to say, hey, it's one of the best platforms if you're going to be doing any online advertising on. So from that perspective, business has not changed. In fact, quite the contrary. I think what COVID has done in 2020 is getting people's eyes open, especially those who were not really online and had offline presences that were hardly shake to the core, if you will, to realize they need to have a better digital presence. So they were moving online. Then you have those like up and comers who had great businesses, but felt like they couldn't compete. And what COVID did was it allowed a great platform for those people to really rise up as thought leaders and double down on their advertising, while some of the bigger companies kind of got lazy and were freaking out and didn't want to do anything there. So if anything, and I say this with a ton of gratitude and a ton of humility, COVID was a very good thing for our business and this industry at large, I believe. So nothing has changed there, except for we don't do live events anymore. We've turned those, and now we've got the Zoom thing going on and all that other fun stuff. As for the state of affairs, that's a funny question. And it's almost like it's a question that could be asked every week and you almost get a little bit of a different answer. In 2020, there were all these algorithm changes and some stuff that happened. And then the Apple iOS thing that was released, iOS 14, that's saying now we can't track people who use Apple platforms, and on and on and on and on. And so on the one hand, I like to say it from the perspective of Nothing's changed because that's how it always was. I think people forget that
Mhm.
Facebook algorithms were always changing. People were getting disabled on the platform all the time. There were always some pixels or Safari or Chrome plugins that were stopping pixels from being placed regardless. And so in that sense, yes, Facebook is still the rocky terrain that it always was. And you need to commit to understanding how to navigate the terrain. But again, on the flip side, it has done a pretty darn good job at realizing the importance of keeping their community happy, keeping their advertisers happy, and kind of marrying the two together there. So the general overall state of affairs, however you want to take it for Facebook, is it's rocky. It always has been, it always will be, but just like surfing, if you know how to ride the waves and understand that they're different waves at different times,
Mhm.
still one of the most powerful platforms out there if you want to do any form of digital and online advertising.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's why I tell people, like, love it or hate it, and everybody has their opinions on it. If you're
Sure.
going to do business online right now, it's like Google, you can't avoid it, right? Like you need to adapt and you need to play with both of those, right? And Facebook, oh, I mean, it's a moving target. It always has been. But
Yes.
one of the things that I've kind of felt over the last, I don't know, let's call it really the last year or so,
Mm.
is I feel like Facebook isn't innovating as much. Right. Like I feel like they've gotten stagnant. There was a lot of things promised. Like let's take groups, for example, right?
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
I was all like groups, groups, groups. I'm telling my members, over the last few years, groups are going to be big, right? But I feel like they've just been neglected, right? I don't
Mm.
feel like there's been anything really new and exciting added to the platform. And maybe there has, and I'm just not seeing it, but I feel
Mm.
like they've got something that's really working and they're trying to return shareholder value out of it, right? And so it's just kind of almost stagnant on the innovation side. I mean, what's your
Yeah.
take on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think early on in the days, Facebook was really about growth through either innovation or acquisition, right? If they saw
Yeah.
someone who came close to doing a better job than what they were doing, they're like, "Fine, well, we'll just buy that company and make it part of the umbrella company," which was great. I think, yeah, definitely 2020 has been where Facebook was on the defensive
Yeah.
rather than on the offensive. They've been attacked by all sorts of people, most recently with Apple, with the government, with all this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, definitely from an innovation standpoint, I can say, they've taken a few steps back and they're just in survival mode.
Yeah.
One of the conversations I hear people say all the time, and to you this is obvious, but to others it isn't. They're like, "Well, my people aren't on Facebook anymore. They like to play on other platforms like Instagram." Well, okay, yeah, but that's a Facebook property too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yes, there's these new things that are coming up, but right now, one thing I do appreciate about the platform, despite it's not being overly aggressive on the innovation side, is they're rolling with the punches. They're getting good advice, and they know that they're in it for the long haul, and
Hmm.
so they're adapting accordingly. And so again, I see it from an advertiser standpoint and to say, you know what, I wasn't even too much of a fan of all the bells and whistles because oftentimes it was, hey, look at this shiny thing. People
Yeah.
would jump all over it. And
Totally.
then it totally died out in
Yep.
like 3 months and they're like, well, whatever. So the beauty of that, however, is for the people who stay committed. And again, I know I sound like a Facebook employee almost, but the people who stay committed, the beauty of this is that because of so many advertisers being wishy-washy and coming on and coming off, those who stick around actually get great opportunity for, I mean, again, Facebook is an auction platform, so great opportunity to get decreased costs for increased eyeballs. And frankly, when it comes to advertising, that's the name of the game. So I think from an advertising standpoint, we're all still in a very, very good and strong place.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, the platform, you can't argue its effectiveness, right?
Sure.
Did they crack down on get more aggressive with policy, you think, and closing people down in 2020?
100%. And that's obviously because I don't know who said it back in the day. I think it was Seth Godin or someone said like marketers ruin everything,
That's so
which
true.
is true, right? You have this like great thing going, and then marketers come on the platform, and
Yeah.
we're seeing that across all the platforms. So,
Yeah.
to that point, yeah, I mean, we gotta be cognizant of that a little bit, but again, a great platform, strong platform, less innovations, obviously, but tons of opportunity that are still at stake.
So, okay, so let's talk about the more difficult niches, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I play in both. I've never
Sure.
been in a freaking easy niche my entire life. I'm like,
Yeah.
one day I just want to sell, I don't know, like just sell like kids toys or something, just super easy. But
Yeah.
you know, health products. Like, I mean, health is
fitness, health,
fitness, health, business, online business, anything like that is always difficult.
Yes.
So let's take health, right?
Yes.
How do
Love
you
it.
play in Facebook if you have a viable, good health product, a health supplement, for example? How do you play on Facebook?
Yeah. So back to the idea that marketers ruin everything, and why Facebook is really like continually hammering down on businesses who don't, agree, follow terms of service or policies and all that stuff. I think that's a good thing, because what marketing has done for many business owners, especially the person who's got a great health product, be it a widget, a supplement, a course, a coaching program, whatever you call it, I'm going to guess that a lot of these people have gone through some sort of a traditional marketing education. And old school direct marketing, and how we're mostly taught, is to overpromise, underdeliver, fanatical claims, all these types of things. And what has happened is Facebook is like, well, no, weight loss person, you can't tell everybody that if they take your pill, all of a sudden they're going to lose 100 pounds, because that's not true.
Yeah.
And so Facebook has really kind of, come down on that. But here's what we're finding generally, especially, let's say, about the health space, is that people are worried, well, if I tone down my message, will that in fact reduce my conversions? That's the concern. If I can't show before and afters, if I can't, say what I want to say about it, will it in fact, ruin my message? And the reality is, no. And here's what we found. We've got a ton of health clients. And the reality is that I think the market in general is so jaded by the overhyped promises anyways, that if you just come in true authenticity to your brand and what your brand represents and who you are, and you avoid that, hey, we help everyone do everything, and yes, you'll guarantee to get an X result, but instead you're like, look, health, like anything, is not an easy road. Yes, this will help you on your journey, like using languaging like that. And again, for some, that seems like it's softening the language, but in reality, the market's like, oh, that's nice to hear, because I know that to be true anyway.
Yeah.
And so we see conversions go up the more people are honest and try to avoid the old school overhyped direct marketing messages anyways.
Yeah, no, what you're saying there, I'm 100% behind. And people have to realize as well that the quality of customer you get with that overhyped message is crap.
Right. Great
Because
point.
they come in with unreasonable expectations
Great point.
anyway. But this is an interesting question that I broached with a few just different agency owners, that I see as a real hurdle right now, specifically if you're an agency. So in 2020, we spent well over $1 million on ads. Okay. And one of the things that I've noticed over the last few years is too many marketers are setting up campaigns on Facebook or Native or whatever, Instagram, and they're looking heavily at last click attribution. And they're making decisions based on, okay, I bought this ad. What was my direct ROI from this ad?
Sure.
But my experience is telling me that the customer journey now, and not even my experience, like the numbers that we're pulling has gotten substantially longer, and people are not taking a linear path to purchase from your ad to purchase.
100%. Yeah.
And we have these independent platforms, Google and Facebook, and all that have their own systems, but you can't track across well.
Sure.
So when you're running Facebook campaigns, especially for agency clients, how do you truly measure the impact of what you're doing? Because if you're just being held to who clicked and who bought, that's not a real representation of the campaign.
Yeah, such a great question. I'll sidetrack for a brief second and come
Okay.
back to it. I was having this conversation with my good friend, Matt Bertulli, who's the CEO of now a $100 million valuated a phone case, primarily for iPhones, but it's a plastic alternative. It's a recyclable phone case.
Yeah.
They only started a few years ago, and now they're a $100 million valuation. Like, it's a
Sure.
company that's crushing it, spending untold amounts of money on
Oh, yeah.
various ad platforms in order to get their message out there. And we had this conversation about attribution, because that's the thing, right? If I'm spending $10,000 a day on Facebook, I need to know that I'm making money back. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to justify the spend, and vice versa. And they're doing TV and they're doing all sorts of things. And so I asked, how do you do attribution, Matt, when you're looking at the overall grand marketing thing? And he said, here's the reality, Nick. I've learned now as a CEO and someone who's also in charge of the marketing, that attribution is a funny thing in today's day and age.
Yes.
And he's resorted back to almost what he didn't call it this, but this was my interpretation of it, of like redneck analytics, if you will. And essentially he's looking at how much are we spending and how much are we making? And what is the delta? Like, are we bringing in more than we're spending on ads? And he says, all we know, like on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, is that although the stats don't tell us that if we spend $1, we make $1.20 back on Facebook, all we know is that when we stop running ads, our revenue numbers go down. And we can't attribute where, because to your point, Derek, there's no longer a linear path to this, because there's a million and one influence of touch points that happen. Maybe they clicked on an ad. Maybe they saw a TV thing. Maybe they heard their friend talking about it and they saw engagement on a post from somebody else's thing back then. And all 19 of those touch points had an influence on the sale. Who takes credit for it? And Facebook will say, well, we take credit for it because we were the last click. And who has that? So on that note, I think as a business owner, we do need to come to the reality that attribution is a very funny thing. And no matter how high tech your attribution and tracking tools are, there's going to be nuances that aren't accounted for, hands down. So there's that, right?
Yeah.
We just have to be okay with the fact that it's not going to be perfect, but we need to get general sense of trends. Am I spending more? Am I making more? Are there certain actions that we're doing that are influencing the general overall revenue? Now, going back to us, that's why I'm also a big fan of not just understanding purchase attribution, but we are big fans, especially on any sort of paid media, that if you're going to spend $1 to try to get a sale, knowing that statistics generally tell us that you need 13 to 33 touch points before someone makes that transactional decision, and that 80% of the people are not going to make a now decision. So if you're presenting them with an offer, 90% or 80% of the people are not going to make a now decision at all. So factoring all that, why, we're big on lead generation, for example, on Facebook, is no matter what you're selling, we emphasize the fact that if you're going to spend $1, you could spend $1 to try to make a sale immediately, but realize that if you only have a 1 to 3% conversion rate, you're losing 90% or 97% of your customers. Or if you generate a lead, create a pixel, do some retargeting, that sort of thing, and you build an asset base, now you have far more potential to tap into what I call the 3 speeds of buyers. We feel like some people buy right away. Well, let's call them the fast category. We have some people who buy through a traditional funnel. They need a couple of touch points, call that a medium mover. And then slow movers who are just going to stay in your world for years, maybe, before they make a transactional decision. And that's okay too, because a lot of people make up that category. So the point is, when we start working with clients from an agency level, we're like saying, well, not only what is your max CPA, what can you afford to acquire a new customer or client, but what is a lead worth to you? What is a lead worth to you 30 days from now versus 100 days from now? And then Dean Jackson has this idea of what is the value of an unconverted lead to you? Because just because you have a lead that's unconverted, if you do some studies over time, percentage of those leads end up converting. And now you have this whole bigger kind of idea or an umbrella that covers all things attribution. So long-winded way of saying that, we get around it by advising our clients and working with our clients to understand stuff like lead value, stuff like lifetime value, understanding that a lead can convert. And so let's focus on maybe like lead costs and what those are worth to you, and trying to put that into the whole bigger picture rather than one click to a sale. Did it make money? Yes or no? Because that kind of cut and dry approach might have you canceling out on campaigns that are actually profitable for you, but you wouldn't know by the 7-day numbers, if you will.
Yeah, no, this is why I wanted to drill into this, because I think a lot of people need to change their mindset right now in terms of media buying, because there's just people that are new to it, just coming with the unrealistic expectation of, I spend $1, where's my 2, right? But then you have the people from that have been doing this for a while, where you did have front end profitable campaigns, right? But the market is changing, and I'm not seeing it. Very rarely do you come across a place where you can make a profit. If I can get self-liquidating, direct attribution, I mean, I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing, right?
I love this. I love this point. Sorry to cut you there, but like, I love this point. I think we need to spend some time talking about this because people miss it, right?
Yeah.
Todd Brown calls it the golden ratio. We were having an in-depth conversation about this at one of my masterminds. And it's this idea of like, what is the golden ratio between how much do I need to spend to acquire a customer, and what is that ratio? So if I spend $1, am I looking to make 2? If I spend $1, would I go in the negative? Like, what is that ratio? And the advice that we're telling people, depending on the cost of your product. I mean, if you're selling $1,000 thingamajigger,
sure,
you have way more margin to be able to see profit on day one. But we're starting to notice that if you're selling a sub, this is generally speaking, a sub $250 offer, the idea of profit on your initial transaction is almost out the window. On cold, scalable traffic. Now, warm traffic, influence traffic, endorsed traffic, yes, let's see a profit. But straight up cold traffic, to a sub $250 offer, you need to go into the mindset like Derek is talking about. And that's this idea of if I can self-liquidate, great. Like Yahoo, that's on the front end, which then, or even if I take a little bit of a loss, and here's where the true business owner entrepreneur comes out. It's how do you understand your 30-day, 60-day, 1-year value of a customer, and then lifetime value, of course, because the name of the game now is let's just get customers in. And when I say customers, even if they spend a little bit of money, they are now a transactional part of your ecosystem. They've actually given you a credit card. And we all know Jay Abraham taught us 3 ways to get customers. And the easiest way is through other customers or current customers. So now we're forced as business owners not to be single SKU, single transactional businesses. We are understanding that this game of revenue is, well, yeah, we have our front end thing, whose job is nothing else but to self-liquidate at best. And then we have upsells, bumps, downsells, cross-sells, lifetime value, things that we can do to actually increase the real revenue and profit of our actual business. And if business owners are not thinking down this line, it's going to be a long, very difficult road if you try to see immediate profit on any sort of paid acquisition channel.
110%. And so everybody that's listening to this, if you are going to spend any money on media, you have to change the way you think in 2021. Yes. And this goes for everybody that hires agencies as well.
Yes.
I did a talk at Rohan's Seth. I did a talk at his mastermind last year, and I was talking about to him about agencies and stuff. Like, you as an agency, if you're going to hire somebody, it's tough, because if somebody comes in with the wrong expectation, like, how do you guys deal with that? And then how do you measure that lift, right? The point I've been trying to drive home to people as well is we hear the term LTV, okay? Lifetime value, right?
Overused, yeah.
Totally overused. And frankly, in my books, it's a bit of a bullshit metric. And the reason why is people say, well, how much can I spend? Well, I need to know my lifetime value. I'm like, really? You want to know how much you're going to spend over the next 3 years with you? You're willing to take a loss for the next 2 years? You're
Right.
Apple? No. And
Right.
that's what I love about what you were talking about. When you talk in terms of value, you're talking 30-day, 68, 90-day values, right? As small businesses, that's so key to
Right.
figure out what that time frame is that you can afford to spend money before you get money back, right? And just to everybody listening, because one of the top questions I get from people who are new to media buying is, well, how much should I budget for media buying, right? And it's like, it's not a budgeting activity. It's an
Never,
act.
ever.
Not even a little bit. It's about finding places where you can buy customers. If you're front end profitable, high five, probably aren't going to be. But if you break even and self liquidate, wonderful. If you lose a bit, that's okay. But how long before you get that money back in back end sales? And it's funny. I belong to this other little mastermind group, and the guys in there, most of them are native buyers, right? So they buy a ton of traffic on native. And I joined this. Oh God, we're coming back a year and a half ago, and these guys were all just churn and burn, right? Churn and burn, run these ads, and they were front end profitable, right? Driving to funnels and stuff like that. But it was never a long-term sustainable business because, once the ad died and the product was they had nothing to sell these people. And so, I've been like, guys, if you want to do this properly, you have to have other things to sell to these people.
Yes.
Right. And treat it like like a real business.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
who would have thunk it? And so sell these people a product that is really good on the front end, over deliver, and you know what? They're going to just buy other stuff from you. And it's been fascinating to watch over the last year, the revelation and how these businesses have transformed. And the fact is whoever can spend the most on media wins in any
Yeah.
market.
Yeah. And if your key metric is your CPA, your cost per acquisition, and your entire business is based on that front end profit, to our points here, it's not going to be long before you're going to feel the wrath of the reality that's going on. And so what I like about this conversation is that it's, we talk Facebook, we talk media buying, we talk ads and advertising and all that fun stuff. And it's very dear to my heart. But what we're encouraging people to do is like, see your business as a business. You can't see it as a single SKU sale type thing.
An offer. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. There's got to be more to it if you want to make it work. And again, even a simple shift of what we're talking about here is see your initial offer as your customer getting play that at best will self-liquidate. If you can kind of just go into it with that mindset, you will win with ads. If you go in with any other mindset, I've got to be wildly profitable on day one. Again, we're talking about, lower ticket items here, not coaching programs or whatever. But if you go into it with that mindset of I've got to be profitable within day one, it's going to be a very difficult uphill road for you.
For sure. So, okay. So going back to Facebook, Instagram specifically, what do you see in terms of what's the most effective today? Because this is a question I get: is people like, "Oh, is it video? Is it image? What is it? Should I be driving to opt-ins? Like, what are you seeing that is the biggest win right now?"
Yeah, and keep in mind, I am biased. Like there are certain things that I've just kind of stuck my flag in the ground and said, if you're gonna advertise on Facebook, this is what you've got to do. But this is my opinion, and just for the record here, for everyone listening, the subject of this subject matter is only my opinion, maybe not Derek's or this show. I got to throw that.
Well, look, yeah, but your opinion counts. Because you've got the ROIs to back it up, right?
Sure. So a couple of fundamental core things. Now, again, these are rules of thumb, not rules of law. And there's a key distinction there. Like these rules are sometimes broken and sometimes do a better performance job than that. But fundamentally, we feel that if you're going to be spending money on media, you've got to use that money to build a platform versus go for the transaction. And so for the sake of easy language, what I mean by that is do some lead generation to build an asset base of an email list. Now, there's many other platforms you could build, podcast followers, Facebook group, like on and on and on and on. But for the sake of easy understanding, which all of us who are listening to this probably understand, it's the list building play. And from there, you could expand. for return, like if we didn't do lead generation, even for e-commerce products, even for like small ticket items, the return on investment would not be nearly as strong as it is now, because of the simple fact that the vast majority of people are not going to transact on the initial offer presented to them. So if you just go into it knowing that, then you have an opportunity. I believe, and this is just kind of a quick side note, that your email list, if treated well, is an appreciating asset over time. It's almost like an annuity. It's a portfolio that, again, if you put it in the right place and you take care of it, your lead list of, even if you didn't generate any more leads, but you had 100,000 people on your list today, if you do really good things with that list, 3 years from now, that is going to be worth way more to you than it is today. Now, if you think about it from that perspective, ads are now an investment to increase your portfolio size of having an investment asset that actually 90% of the time, if done right, increases over time, similar to real estate. Now, of course, there's exceptions to that, but go with me here. So, one of our first fundamental beliefs is that you've got to do some sort of quality lead generation in order to maximize your return on investment. Because if you're only relying on Facebook and they go away, or an algorithm happens, or something goes on, and you can't buy that media to get those eyeballs, and you don't have a list or a platform of sorts of your own, big trouble, right? So step number one. Secondly, let's, we talked about videos versus images. Here's our general rule of thumb. Cold audiences generally are looking for any reason to not trust you and to say no to you, just because they don't know you and it's the internet, right? So the more reasons you give them to not trust you, the harder it is to get them through your sales process and to be an end buyer. And so what we found is, let's say the image versus video kind of conversation. 9 times out of 10, video gives more reasons for people to say no than yes. Now, it could be something as simple as they didn't like how your hair was that day. They didn't like the background that was there. They didn't like the tone. Maybe your mic wasn't plugged in and it was bad audio. And despite how awesome your product or program is, if there's just something that kind of gives them a reason to be like, not really, you kind of lose that opportunity. Images are very hard to beat. So what we found is, generally speaking, 90% of the time, unless there's exceptional video done, or they're a very interesting personality, or their niche just needs video, images are working better, like generally speaking. So if I were to just give like 2 pieces of advice, stick with image-based ads. However, go with square-based images versus the old school horizontal images. Like 1280 by 1280 is a good square-based image, because this now equates to better distribution on all of the ways that Facebook distributes this out, audience network, this, that, and the other. So image-based things that provoke emotion, that tell a story, that draw the person in, and go to some sort of a lead generation play, however you want to do that. And I think just by doing that, you'll start to see even better results than you might be getting if you're not doing that play currently.
That was fantastic. It's funny. I was thinking when you're talking about images, I don't think I've ever beat an image with a video.
Yeah. And here's the crazy part, Derek. I know you're awesome on video. I feel I'm pretty damn good on video too. And so like I get myself all hyped up. I'm like,
totally.
This video is gonna crush, man.
Yeah.
All this. Yeah, and then you run it, and then the damn picture of the staircase that has nobody on it like beats you, and you're like, I give up, man. I give up. I can't do this anymore. So yeah, generally speaking, I too have not seen any of my videos outperform my images.
I'm trying to think. The only time I think video has ever worked is when I'm retargeting a warm audience.
Correct.
And there's already a connection there.
100%.
Then it'll fly. But on a cold audience, you're right. There's no way. I always chuckle when we've had this conversation before on past, but when we talk about lead gen and we talk about email, because email, I can't count how many times I've heard that email is dead, or email is dying. Why do we need email if we've got Facebook? And here's my answer. I'm like, look, if Facebook has something really important to send to you, how do they send it to you?
Yeah, good. Yeah,
they email it to you, right? But yeah, the email is not dead, and it's the asset that you control. And I just want to re-highlight that to people who are out there building audiences on Facebook and completely and any platform, frankly, and neglecting email. Email still wins. And, I'll let you answer this because this is the question I always get. Well, do people read their emails? Do people still open their emails? How do
Yeah.
you answer
Uh,
that?
yeah. Well, if they're good and if they're helpful. I mean,
Ta-da.
right. Like if you look in your inbox, I'm
Yep.
sure now I'm pretty good at maintaining an inbox zero. I've learned some tricks along the way to do that. But generally speaking, what I tell people is like, look at your inbox and there's emails that you open and then there's emails that you don't. And why is that? What is about the emails that you open versus the emails that you don't that causes you to open that and then replicate that as a marketer? If they're helpful, if they're poignant, if they're timely,
Yeah.
if they're valuable, if they're good. I mean, there's some, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm a terrible email marketer. I'm, just because I don't like getting a ton of email, I'm like, I don't want to push out a ton of email.
Mhm.
But there's some people in the industry, like Ben Settle, for example, sends out a daily email.
I'm on his list. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the open rates are what? Bloody, I'm making this up. I don't know his open rates, but I can
Sure.
only assume they're plus 60 plus, like,
Yeah.
because people want to hear from them.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, our inbox is getting cluttered. Absolutely. You see those screenshots of people's like iPhone and like 47,000 unopened emails. Like, okay, there's some of that, granted. But the point is, can you control the platform? And I mean, if we wanted to take it a little step further, yeah, build the email as your core I call it a platform. A platform to me is defined as any way that you can kind of push a button, communicate to a
Sure.
mass group of people instantly.
Yeah.
So make email your core platform and then spin off if you want. Like at the same time, drive those email people to a Facebook group or a podcast subscription or a YouTube, whatever you want to do, because we are realizing that our customers are on multi-channel. And so that's fine. But look, yeah, to the point, if you write good emails that actually help people that are not always selling and all this other stuff, yes, people open emails just like me and you do. When my mom sends me an email, well, my mom's a bad example. She doesn't know how to use email. When my wife sends me an email, I'm going to open it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I certainly am. And so, just keeping that mentality when you have that relationship with your customer or your subscriber, people are looking forward to hearing from you.
For sure. Okay. So in that kind of vein of ways to communicate, let's talk about chatbots.
Sure.
Have you done much with chatbots on Messenger?
Early in the days, yes, because, and this is just part of the lessons that I've learned, right? So I now consider myself a very slow adopter because I used to be a quick adopter, like, oh, new thing, let's try
Totally.
it. And then again,
Yeah.
3 months passes, you're like, shit, I just wasted all that time.
Yeah.
So early on the day, we tried to do a lot with chatbots and it was exciting, but again, marketers ruin everything. And they became these annoying channels and people weren't responding as well anymore. So it's been a long time since we did anything with chatbots, but I will say when we did, we have found, if this makes sense to the listener here, that its greatest utilization was middle and bottom of funnel. So where we used to use it at the front end to try and generate leads and put people in a sequence, inboxes got cluttered. They ended up in the wrong folders, et cetera, et cetera. However, when we were in a middle of funnel scenario for retargeting, or they're watching some content, or they're leading up to a sales call, and you instituted some of that in there, it actually performed quite well. But again, it's been a while since we've done anything specifically with chatbots, just because, again, I feel like the flavor of the month passed to something else and people are looking at other things right now.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And if it makes you feel any better, I used to go down that rabbit hole every time and be like,
yes,
new shiny thing. And then all this time into it and then it's gone.
Have you yourself, Derek, done anything with chatbots that's worth kind of sharing there? Or
what you said is 100% my experience. Cold stuff. Once people are mid funnel, once they've come to a webinar, once they've subscribed to something, typically, and I, in a month or two from now, I'm going to have better information on this because we're setting up a system right now to take customers in the health business and push them into the chatbot. Once we've had their email, hey, let's build another channel that we can communicate with them on, and then utilize this platform called Facebook that's actually really hard to advertise a supplement on because we can now do it privately through a messenger channel, right?
Yes.
And so I see it as you said, bottom of funnel, they're really close. It can be an addition to once you have their email address. Or once they are a customer, right? Just a way to, especially if you're an e-com, sending them, discounts and sales and notifications and stuff like that. Right. So I'm working on a play to get people off of wherever they are over to Messenger. And we're actually setting up a campaign where when somebody gets the product in the mail, we're dropping in a little postcard that says, hey, we've got a free gift waiting for you. Just go connect with us on our Facebook page. Right. So getting all of these customers who didn't find us on Facebook to go over to Facebook, engage with us, put them in a chatbot sequence that we can now push messages out to them. So is it going to work? I don't know, but it was the most logical way for me to take an e-com business and play with chatbots in a channel where I'm not even finding the people on Facebook.
Well, to that point, I think there's something to say. A friend of mine, Taki, has this idea called sell by chat. And what I like about chat, generally speaking, is the fact that you actually have a quote unquote dialogue with somebody.
Sure.
What the problem with the chat bot or the automation behind it is that it removes that sense. I mean, it pseudo tries to make it feel like there's a conversation, but they clearly know. Yeah. Now, if you could take that same concept and use actual human beings and manpower, I know a handful of my clients who utilize the power of chat to further things, but with humans. And so they have a team of humans whose no other job is, let's say in your case, is to reach out via chat to their customer base or to a prospect base and have a real conversation with them. And that has actually produced some fantastic results. Most people shy away from that because they're like, you mean I got to manually do something or hire a human to do it? I'm out.
That's not why I started an internet business.
Exactly. But there's opportunity there. So sometimes I suggest people think about why it could potentially be effective. And again, the idea of chat, it's potentially because you're having human to human dialogue. And then how do you actually replicate that versus just thinking, hey, how can I have a piece of tech push things and do things that's not there?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, people can smell a bot a mile away now. It's like pre-recorded webinars. Welcome to our live webinar. First question everybody asks, is this really live? But to that point, it's like using live chat on sites, right?
Right.
You have live chat. If you're in an e-com business and you're doing any kind of volume, put live chat on and you're going to close more sales, right?
Oh yeah. 100%.
People don't want to call. They want to chat now. I mean, I hate it. If I go somewhere and I have to get support via a phone, shoot me. I'd rather do it by live chat.
And what I've seen happen, actually, this was a recent experience of mine. I was looking at a couple of cars. We're looking at a car sites or whatever. And it was a WhatsApp, like, hey, have a question. Of course, I was the same way. I don't want to call you and I don't want to email you, but I was like, oh, I clicked the WhatsApp button and now it's on a platform that I already have in my phone. And I was talking to the guy and he ended up selling me a $200,000 car. And I was like, I can't believe that just happened through WhatsApp. Yeah. So that's another thing is think about utilizing platforms that people are already on. In this case, rather than even just a live chat. Well, of course, if you have a huge customer service team that helps out. But again, it's just idea of people, where are people at? Do they want to get on the phone? Probably not. Do they want another email to go back and forth on? Maybe not. But if they can have a real conversation on a platform that's already on their mobile device, you might have some opportunity there.
100%. In fact, I actually, so we bought a Tesla a couple months ago.
Yes.
And we bought it online. I didn't talk to anybody.
To a human. And you can't negotiate the price, which is driving me insane.
You can't, but here's the thing about cars. I love the fact that you can't negotiate the price because I never leave the dealership going, did I get hooched and the next guy got a better deal, right?
Exactly. Right. True.
So I actually like that. And it was such an amazing experience. I'm like, click, enter my credit card, boom. And, we got an email, here, come pick it up. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Well, that's I had that same experience when we bought our Tesla 4 years ago. And the fact that at the end, this is what I love the best. I don't know why this kind of made me smile. At the end of choosing all your options, it's like, would you like to pay credit card or PayPal?
Yeah.
I was like, yes. Yeah. And I hit the PayPal button and the transaction happened. I was like, oh my God, I just bought a car
Yeah.
with PayPal. Like,
I know
so
that.
yeah,
Yeah. I went through the exact same experience. I was giddy. I'm like, this was awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
so amazing. So amazing. All right. So I've got, okay. I mean, I could keep talking to you all day about this stuff, but I got one more thing I want to dive into, and that is
Yeah,
groups. Okay. So,
sure.
I mean, groups are one of those things that I had high hopes for it. When there was rumor, was it a year ago, that we'd be able to boost posts from
Yeah,
groups and
yeah,
stuff? I was like,
run ads to groups.
yeah, that's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome. And
It never
nothing,
happened.
just crickets, right?
Yeah.
Um, what's your take on groups? How are you seeing people use them effectively? Pre-purchase, like, post-purchase,
Yeah.
fine. Like,
Yeah, of
get
course.
customer makes sense, but as part of your marketing funnel.
Yeah, so this is very interesting, and I love this question because I accidentally stumbled upon groups like whatever, like 5, 6, 7 years. I don't even know how long it was because people just started pinging me all the time and said, "Hey, can I pick your brain? Can I pick your brain?" I was like, "No, but what if I just start a Facebook group and I promise that once a day I'll jump in there and answer questions." And then so we started this group called Facebook Marketing Mastery at the time. And before I knew it, and I wish there was a science to it, and I wish I could tell people how to grow your group effectively. Before I knew it, in a couple of years, there was like 80, 90,000 people in this group.
Mhm.
And also what I realized, and my mindset was this was a supplement to the email list. Just
Yes.
however I would treat an email list is how I would treat the Facebook group. So a ton of content, a lot of community, a lot of that. But for the first 4 years of the group, the group was $1 million plus group to me. And what I mean by that is the direct revenue attributed by the group members and offers we made in the group was over $1 million for the first 4 years. And then I let it kind of just get away, right? I stopped showing up a little bit. The group grew too fast. There was a lot of spam crap in there.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I lost reins to the group. And I was like, oh boy. And all of a sudden the revenue from the group is zero, like literally zero. There's a lot of opportunity, but I neglected the group, and I ended up, this was a nice little side thing. I ended up selling the group and making a profit that way from it. But the point I'm trying to make is groups are effective, in my opinion, based on this learning. If you can commit to what the group is meant for, and that is, here's what I believe: people join groups for content, but they stay for community.
Mhm.
So if you can provide great content and manage a great community, now you have opportunities to use that group from a monetization standpoint. What many of our clients who use groups as part of their marketing, they have coaches / appointment setters whose only job is, based on the activity that's happening in the group, reach out to those engagers via chat and say, hey, looks like you had a question about this. Would love to engage with you on that. Would you like to set up a time with one of our senior consultants to discuss that? And so they're appointment setters getting phone calls for, this is for higher ticket stuff, of course, selling to group. What we notice now more recently, when groups changed a little bit and you could ask questions when people enter the group, for example, you could use groups for lead gen. So question number one, whatever. Question number two is, hey, I have this free gift. Would you like it? If so, leave your email address. And so we can collect an email there. And thirdly, what is the greatest thing that you're looking to accomplish in your, let's call it business or health, whatever the group is, over the next 3 months? And they give you an answer. And these are now imported. The emails are put into our database. So we've collected the lead, but now our sales consultants have this data of what they just said to be, hey, this is what I would like to accomplish in the next 3 months, sorry. And then the tail part of that question is, if we feel like we can help you with this, are you open to having a conversation about that? And again, 90% of the people say yes. And so now it becomes a true sales channel. So for me, groups is, if you can somehow crack the code on keeping engagement high, which is not easy at all. But if you can crack the code on keeping engagement high, keeping content fresh, building community, and then intentionally put it as part of your marketing process. And when I say intentionally, I mean, don't just have a group and like post, hey, who wants to buy my next thing? Like, that's not intentional, but it's, hey, where in the marketing process is this? Are there thoughtful questions like lead gen questions? And can we reach out to you? Do you have people that will then reach out to people who are raising their hands for conversations? if you could do it that way, I still think there's great potential within groups. But if you're not careful, you end up like I did, which is a 90,000 person group, probably 20 or 30,000 is just spammy people trying to post this stuff. And so you've got to regulate the group a little bit. But if you can not accept everybody, have a intelligent process and add it intentionally into your overall marketing scheme, I think there's still great opportunity there. Not as good as it before, but there's still opportunity there if that's your play.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, there's just so many groups out there. Is getting people into your group is always a challenge. A couple key things I just want to highlight for the listeners. One, again, it's in conjunction with email, right? So, it's another great channel for that.
100%.
But one of the key things that you said that I've witnessed, haven't personally done, but seems to be the way, particularly for people with high ticket and coaching, is the sales process is watch for engagement, message them on Messenger, bring them into a sales cycle, but it's with a human being,
a human, 100%.
right? And it's got to go to human being. And that is, I know that's working well for quite a few businesses, especially if you're in the coaching and training and info space and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anyway, dude, I could keep going, but
so can
I love these conversations, especially
too.
when we get into the deep stuff. I love your depth of knowledge on this, right? I can tell you eat, breathe, sleep this stuff, right? So
for better or for worse,
for better or for worse. And I can't wait to do another episode with you. I'm gonna keep hitting you up because I always
hopefully it won't be. When was the last one? You said 2 years ago. Hopefully it won't be that. Hopefully it won't be that.
2018. Yeah. Well, no, I'm back into the podcast, right? If there's one thing COVID has given me is more time to do stuff like this, right?
Sure.
So that's fantastic. So actually, before we wrap up, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, no, I think there's a couple of ways. Fortunately or unfortunately, Derek, I don't know if you experienced this. I'm the only Nicholas Kusmich in the world. So in that, yeah, it is great if the name was easier to spell. So it's not the most brandable name in the world, but on all social channels, if you go /Nicholas Kusmich, if you can figure out how to spell it, you can find me on there. And then, we've just set up a little mini site that says, hey, if you're interested in like exploring what working together might look like on any front, workwithnick.com, workwithnic.com is a great kind of way to just, we'll connect. We'll see if there's some fits on what we could do. Otherwise, the social channels, I'm obviously putting out content, trying to help people as much as I can across the board there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, just spilling the beans, unconditionally sharing. Love that about you. You don't hold back. So thank you so much, Nicholas.
I know. Thanks for having me. This was a ton of fun, and I'm hoping there was some value provided, and that people look. And I'll end with this in the sense where, please don't just listen to another one of Derek's podcasts and be like, "Oh, that was great. I'm going to go listen to the next one and the next one." Listen to it, but actually do the content. Whether it's something that we said today or from a past guest or a future guest, take the information and do something with it, because I think that's where you're going to start to see the results. So I just encourage you to do that.
And that's huge. And in fact, you beat me to it, because I was going to say now it's your turn. If you want to actually make something happen from this episode, listening to another episode. Yeah. I mean, obviously listen to all my episodes, but
absolutely,
absolutely. But you got to do something with this, right?
Yeah.
Take action, focus. I mean, Facebook's not going anywhere. I forget the exact number, but I think it was like 60+% of all advertising went to Facebook and Google last year, right? Like, holy crap. Yeah. It's massive. So, you've got a lot to digest here. Now go use it. And if you liked what you heard here, if you enjoyed this episode, head over to your favorite podcast platform and give us a review, preferably a good one, and leave us a comment. And this is Derek Gale signing off. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to another info-packed episode of the Project Ignite podcast with Derek Gale.
Any links mentioned, along with an entire transcript of this episode, can be found at projectignite.com/podcast.
And to make sure you never miss another episode, go to iTunes or SoundCloud now and subscribe.